Hey guys, welcome back to the MLS Updater. Today we're deep diving back into Sporting KC. I'm really happy to say that Chad has come back to join us today. Chad, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, pleasure, absolute pleasure. I'm really excited to get back into everything that's been going on after an exciting end to last year for you guys. Can you remind everyone where they can follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of the editors over at thebluetestament.com, and then I'd say the best place to follow me is going to be on Twitter at play for90. So yeah, enjoy a follow if you guys want to hear more about Sporting Kansas City. It's all I tweet about, basically.
Excellent, excellent. So let's have a quick little look back at 2022. It was a sort of season of two halves. They can say a game of two halves, but it really was a season of two halves for you guys, wasn't
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I mean, two halves, that might be generous because it was like about the first two-thirds that was pretty atrocious between, Alan Pulido and Gadi Kinda missing the whole
it?
season, two of your three DPs, and then just abysmal results. But hey, that
Yeah.
last third was pretty fantastic, so it gives you reason for optimism.
Definitely, yeah. It was I think looking back at it, was it six of your last seven games you won, I think it was, or at
It's
least were
something like
unbeaten.
that. Yeah, like
Um
they had a pretty good run, couple draws in there, I think too. But yeah, seven
mm,
wins in like maybe the last 10 or so games, give or take. But yeah, it was I think only Montreal had a better record down the
yeah.
stretch and just missed the playoffs by this much. So who knows what they could have done if they'd have got in there. Maybe this year they will get in. They're gonna let all the teams in, it sounds like. So
Yeah, yeah, these are quite expanded format now, isn't it? So,
yeah.
you mentioned obviously Kinder and Polido injuries were a huge hit to be out for the whole season. But Willie Agada and Eric Tommy came in as sort of their sort of direct replacements, I guess, for the second half of last season, and now you have all of them back possibly going into this season. What can we start from the pre-season, from what you've seen so far and following? Where are sort of Kinder and Polido at, sort of health wise?
Yeah, so I caution to say they're both fully back. I know that
Mm.
Alan Pulido is back in practice. We saw actually a lot of the Kansas City media is out in Phoenix for the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
covering the Chiefs, and they're stopping by sporting practice, and they said Pulido is a participant, and then they said he'll be full next week, is what the team said. So that's
Okay, brilliant.
exciting. Gotti Kinda probably a little bit further off. We had asked Peter Vermees about it earlier in the offseason. He said it's a possibility both of them could be ready for the opener, but I'm guessing Kinda's probably just a bit further off, but hey, as long as, just take it easy. No reason to risk
Yeah,
injury, get him hurt. If you get both those guys back plus the Tommy and Agata signings, it's a pretty potent attack.
definitely. And you've obviously Shallowy re-signed last year as well. Obviously, you've got Johnny Russell and players like this. So that the forward line is looking pretty exciting going into 2023. Should everyone be fit and firing?
Yeah, our running joke this offseason's being they're just going to score more goals than everybody else,
Yeah.
but they're not going to worry about playing any defense. So hopefully they figure out the defense part too. But yeah, it looks like they should be between the midfield and the attack, just kind of ridiculous if it all works out. Fingers crossed for good health for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you don't want, after such a difficult year last year of injuries, it's maybe it's your year to have a nice clean one. But with the extended sort of extended season now, obviously leagues, Cup, Open Cup, everything going on, it's going to be vitally important to have all these players and be able to rotate them quite well, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, it looks like only a two more games guaranteed, right, from Leagues Cup, and
Mm.
I know there's like a subset of the fan base that's like, I just want Sporting to tank in the Leagues Cup and not care and just get healthy in the summer and then, make a run down the stretch. But I mean, I'd like to win. I'd like to win everything. I want all the
Yeah.
trophies. So
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how every side sort of approaches those, to see what happens with that. And you mentioned obviously looking to, yeah, the running joke of we're just gonna try and outscore you. You've brought in a couple of players, Nemanja Radoja and in the center of midfield, like new number six, I guess. Have you been able to get a bit more of an idea now that he's arrived and in pre-season of what he could bring to the team?
the kind of downer of preseason this year is everything's been behind closed doors. So we're
Mm,
relying on like little tiny couple of minute video packages
yeah.
that the team puts out and then lineups and tweets about what happened, but not a lot of detail about Radoya
Mm.
specifically. He has not actually played yet. They've played four
Oh,
preseason
really?
games and he has not appeared in any of them. So Vermees had told us it was just something minor. He was kind of vaguely speaking about all the people that were out injured because there's been quite a few people that haven't played, and he says it's minor, it's nothing to be concerned about, but we've also heard that before, so I always get a little nervous that
Yeah.
it's like one or two of them might be more serious than they're letting on. But if he's good and he can fill in at that number 6, that defensive midfielder spot, that would be just immense because I think that's been kind of one of the things we've had people playing out of position ever since
Mm.
Gianluca Buzio basically got sold. There hasn't really been anybody consistent playing that spot, doing what Sporting need them to do.
And you had some difficulties in the center of defense, and I guess maybe that was like a an extra factor to that, not having that protective shield in front of the defense. I guess has been a bit of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, if you look around MLS, I feel like the teams that have really good defensive midfielders are some of the better teams in the league between like,
Mm.
Cifuentes at LAFC and is it Martinez at Philadelphia, I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah, so some of those guys, Chara and Portland, although Portland had a pretty bad year last year too, but
Yeah.
some of those guys can make a huge difference. And I think a lot of people are kind of banking on that's going to help the defense if you get that right person in front of their shielding and, directing traffic and whatnot.
Yeah, that can help. And you you've signed Tim Leopold, a sort of left back from the Bundesliga 2 in Germany. But center of defense seems to be the biggest issue at the moment. Isimat Marin has left, one of the sort of regular starters last year. How is this looking for you guys covering the team?
It's definitely the thing that we're the most nervous about. I guess if I could
Mm.
plug one other thing, I have a podcast. If you're really into sporting Kansas City,
Yeah.
for the Glory KC, you can find it anywhere you find the good podcasts. And we've been talking about it on every episode. Like they got to sign at least one more center back. They only have three
Mm.
on the roster right now, and that's you need two starters at least in the formation they play, the 4-3-3. So
Yeah.
I got to add somebody at center back. Yeah, Isamat Marin would be the guy that was a regular starter last year. Hopefully they're going to get somebody starting caliber, but I think right now it probably looks like Andreu Fontas and Courtney Ford are probably your starting center backs, and then Robert Volador is the other guy, and he's one of the U22 guys. So
Mm.
high upside, but hasn't had a lot of playing time yet.
No, so yeah, it looks like you'd imagine then that's the area they're sort of focusing on
Yeah.
going to the end. It's mentioned there obviously that's not too many signings, but we did have the Ronaldo links but at the beginning of this sort of off season. How was the feeling around what Kansas were actually trying to do with this? Like, was this something that completely blew you out the water, I guess?
I think it's anytime you hear Ronaldo, Messi, anybody like
Yeah.
that linked to your team, it just seems like this can't even be real. I bet there's a subset of the fans that don't think it was real, but
Mm.
it seems like it was pretty real and it was fun if nothing
Yeah.
else, right? It shows a level of ambition and we got a few billionaires that own the team, so they have the means to go do something crazy
Mm.
like this if they want. But a lot of people I think that are really tuned into the team said it really doesn't make sense. Like they're
No.
pretty set in the attack, and he's going to displace somebody. Ironically, Daniel Shalhoub plays where Ronaldo would probably play, and I guess he plays some center forward too. But
Yeah.
and Shalhoub loves Ronaldo. It's his favorite player. So I thought it'd be funny if they signed him and then it displaces him and he loses his job. But yeah, it was incredibly fun for a few days. Like we didn't find out about it till it was dead and he was heading off to Saudi Arabia. But
Yeah.
we had some fun with it, and I think it's one of those stories that they're going to be talking about this for years to come. Remember when we almost got Ronaldo, and people will be like, "I was a myth that never happened." So I think that'll be the cool thing to look back on, especially small little Kansas City in the middle of the country. You'd think
Yeah.
L.A. or New York or Miami, but not
Exactly.
not KC.
Exactly. I look at like all the chat around it with how would he deal with Peter Vermees on the sideline screaming at him to get him to move him. But I can only imagine the conversation between him and Johnny Russell over the number 7 shirt.
Oh yes, yeah. Russell made a pretty good joke about that too. He said something to the effect of like he'd have to give him a percentage of his salary to get that money off of him. And Russell actually told a really good story about it on a podcast I was listening to where he was going into how much the number 7 meant to him. It's like meant a lot to him since childhood.
Mm.
So while he was joking about, it cost a lot to get it off of him, I think there was actually some real like it really means, how numbers mean stuff to people.
Yeah.
And that 7 position's pretty synonymous with a winger, and that's where Johnny's lining up. So it'd be like taking the number 10 off of your attacking mid or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And well, like obviously Ronaldo doesn't come cheap. And you mentioned obviously your owners, very, very wealthy owners. Does this give some sort of thought about when this centre back is needed? Does it start to make you feel like, okay, well, it's not we're not going to be shopping in the bargain bins. Like we have the means and they're willing to spend it.
Yeah, I'm hoping it shows a level of ambition, but I'm personally a little skeptical that anything big is going to happen this year. I actually wrote a story over on the Blue Testament if any of you are interested in reading. It gets kind of into the weeds of,
Yeah,
how rosters are built in MLS, and without getting really complicated, if they add like a true designated player, somebody that makes, over that about what 1.1.65 million or transfer fees or whatnot pushing them
yeah,
over, then they would have to do some real finagling with their roster to make things work by either buying down other players or trading or transferring. So I mean, they probably would have done that to get Ronaldo, but are they
mm,
willing to do that for like a DP center back? Or do you just go maybe get somebody that's in more that like targeted allocation money level where a little bit less money, still quality player?
yeah,
And I think that's much more likely to happen than to blow up your whole team to make one last move, especially at center back. You don't really see it a lot in the league where people are going to spend big on center backs. They do it on strikers, they do it on that
yeah,
like attacking midfielders, but wingers maybe a little bit, but it's all offensive positions for the most part. Very rarely do you see it in the spine of the defense. They're a little bit in DP center or D mids, but not so much at center back very often. Maybe Walker Zimmerman. I think he's like the only one I can think of. So that's a
yeah. I
DP.
think New York City FC have got
Mm.
I've got one there, and Kayan's
That's right. They
obviously
did
just
add
moved
one.
on,
Yeah. And
but
that
yeah,
ironically moved to their really good center back out to make
yeah.
that move. So yeah, I don't know.
Um, do, do we feel like centre back's the only place that we need to be addressing now? Otherwise, looking at this roster, are you feeling pretty confident about what you're going into 2023 with?
Yeah, I feel definitely center back, right?
Mm,
Like pretty much every other position, I'd say you're at least two deep in them. Now, some of them are younger guys that are in that second spot. So, like
yeah,
at defensive midfielder, you're talking if Redoya can't play, does Remy Voltaire rather slide back to I can never I look at the W and I can't say it, but with a W. Um, does he slide back and then you got to put somebody in his spot? So they have enough depth, I think. Like it take a few injuries to really knock them down all in one spot. So yeah, center back's the only thing that I feel like they're a center back away from being, potential contenders. And honestly, the two center backs they have that are starters might be good enough. It's just it's so risky with, all the
mm,
injuries and the amount of games they're going to play. And Ford and Fontes have missed pretty significant minutes, not in the last year or two, but over their careers, they've had some pretty serious
yeah.
injuries. So you never do you want to trust just having, three guys for two spots? I don't feel like they can do that.
No, yeah, I mean, Philadelphia got quite lucky last year with the centre backs able to play basically every game, wasn't it? But you got to get very lucky to keep two players fit in those key areas for an entire
Exactly, exactly.
season.
And it might work out. I mean, but that's usually the difference between the really good teams and the bad teams, right? Do you have people that can step up and fill those
Mm.
spots and, the level not drop off too much because, everybody deals with injuries. It's just you kind of got to get lucky that they're in the
Yeah,
right spots where you have the right depth. Because obviously last year, center forward and attacking mid where they were down their two guys, it killed Sporting. It's brutal.
yeah. You touched on there that see like too deep in most other areas, and some of these are young players. Some of these key veterans though, like Graham Zusi, have all been given like a 1 year extension. So does this look like in some areas of the pitch, this is like the season of sort of passing the torch almost? Like this is giving these young players the chance to not be thrown in saying you have to be a starter this season, but we're going to make you the starter next year.
I feel like the last couple of seasons, I've kind of thought that was the case. Like, oh, well, Zusi and Espinoza, they're gonna go, right? They're
Yeah.
gonna just one more year. Zusi seems to be like just outworking father time over here. It seems like he doesn't age, but he did miss a decent amount of time last year with injuries,
Mm,
so catches up with everybody. But
yeah.
yeah, I think probably like those are the two spot like Roger Espinoza, he's already been talking about how he wants these young guys to take his job from him, wants them to outwork him. And but
Yeah.
if they don't, he he wants to be on the pitch. If he's performing better than them, he should be out there. And I think they're great locker room leaders, right?
Mm.
And Roger's like a key cog in that team, both an English and Spanish speaker, and he kind of
Yeah.
welcomes all the new players in and does a good job kind of getting everybody integrated and being that glue guy. So even
Yeah.
if he doesn't play a minute, I think he's a great asset in the locker room. And of course, he's going to get on the field. He's Roger Espinosa. He's gonna fight his way in there. Actually, in preseason, he's played defensive midfielder in almost every game. Now, this
Okay.
could just be because Redoya is not available and they're
Yeah.
trying some stuff out, but I never know how much to put into that, and because I haven't seen the actual film besides the little
Yeah.
clips from the sideline cell phone or whatever they have going on there, it's hard to know how he's performing in that role.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. I guess a number of players maybe they once they hit an age where they can't be quite so box to box as they used to be. That's probably a good
Right.
spot for them.
Exactly right. Like he could still get down the field sometimes, but not need to go every single time
Yeah.
and running end to end like that. So maybe, save your legs a little bit, help out the team. Maybe even come in and kill off a game, kind of be a
Mm.
destroyer in that role, which the team never really has had somebody super physical, and at least not in the last 10 years or so, that's kind of shutting down things, fouling when you need to foul. We know Roger, he's the
Yeah.
MLS all-time leader in red cards, so he's got no problem fouling people if he needs to foul people.
I was looking at some of the other teams around the league and how their preparations are going, and so you've got like Vancouver Whitecaps look like they're changing up their system from like the back three that they used to use at the wing backs to a back four. Philadelphia have tried some games with wing backs.
Yeah.
We have has any of the preseason games look like any new systems might be being trialed in Sporting Kansas City, or is it 4-3-3 all the way?
Yeah, if they're doing it, they're hiding it because they're
Yeah.
they're releasing the lineup in a 4-3-3. They're labeling like they're breaking up the lines by like putting little line breaks in their lineups, and they're even labeling their holding or defensive midfielder in each tweet. So
Yeah.
I don't think so. If I don't know if you watched close enough last year, I think they literally ran out of back three in one game, and then
Mm.
by halftime they had switched out of it because it was not going well. So
Yeah.
um, they're so drilled and they're so good at that the 4-3-3 can mold and shift. You can bring your
Mm.
wingers back. You can tuck in one of those eights to kind of become another six when you need to. So I think it's got enough the numbers don't always mean anything, right? Like
Yeah.
they don't necessarily aren't lined up on those parts of the field all the time. Their fullbacks tend to get way up the field, but at times they'll kind of have a back three where Zusi doesn't go and he stays back and kind of
Yeah.
pings those long balls, whereas the left back, whether it's in Dembe or Sweat or now Leibold,
Mm.
it looks like they're going to get up the field and kind of be that extra, attacking piece, forming all those triangles up and down the left side of the attack.
Yeah. I guess then, yeah, talking about that fluidity, maybe up front, especially, say maybe make one of those sort of eights, two sixes, maybe. Is that some way we might be able to see Polido or Kinder as well with Agada? Because I
Ooh,
guess
yeah.
that's the big question: is how do you get all these players in, and can you get them all on the pitch at the same time?
Yeah, I'll be intrigued to see. I think when they're behind, they've done weird things where they have essentially like four forwards on the field at
Mm.
once, or maybe you take a fullback off and add a forward, and you just don't come back and play defense as
Yeah.
much. You just try to keep possession and stay in attack and get desperate. But I'll be intrigued to see if they do something with that. I'll admit I don't always follow all the other leagues and
Mm.
whatnot in the world, but I remember when Polito first signed with the team, I reached out to some folks that covered Chivas in Liga MX, and they were saying Polito's best position really is either like second striker or left wing, not center forward, where
Mm.
Sporting played him. And he kind of plays more like a false nine. He'll drop into the midfield more, and Agata doesn't really play that way. So
No.
I think there's a way they could be on the field together, but I don't know how they'll do that. Do you
Yeah.
take off one of your great midfielders because you got some pretty darn good midfielders, and do you maybe let Shallowy not play every single minute, the left winger tucks in a little bit with the left, back getting up there to kind of make that width. So
Mm.
there's some possibilities, and I just hope that Peter Vermees uses his subs. He's got a much deeper team now and doesn't
Yeah.
run people into the ground because I think the stat was he used subs less than any other manager in the league last
Oh,
year. So
really?
I would like that not to be the case, especially in the attack with so much talent once everybody's healthy and ready to contribute.
Yeah, he's sort of given himself those the wanted headache of having too many sort of starters in similar positions. And I guess that was forced with the Kinder and Polido injuries that brought these players in, but it must be it's so nice how well they've fitted into this team so quickly, and going into this new season, you've got all of these starters to try and work out.
Yeah, a good problem to have, right? An
Yeah.
embarrassment of riches in the attack. You know what's funny is last year when they were talking about bringing people in the summer, Kansas City is always really bad at it. Like they never bring
Mm.
in anybody that contributes right away. Maybe they'll play a little bit, but they really get integrated the next season. And the most successful, like successful quote unquote left back, well, ever, or I'm sorry, signing we had ever had was like a backup left back. Luis Martins had got in and
Yeah.
played, a decent amount. You may actually he was on Vancouver recently. I don't know
Yeah.
if he re-signed with them or not. So, but yeah, that was a kind of a weird one. But then Kinda and Agata, or I'm sorry, not Kinda, Tommy and Agata just blew it
Mm.
out of the water. So now the
Yeah.
expectations are high. Maybe they'd save that last DP spot for the summer and swing something big again and make this our new like the Seattle Sounder move where you bring in some key piece in the summer and go on and win a title.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes it's looking like a lot of teams are quite front loaded with their fixtures before Leagues Cup. So then when the new transfer window comes in and finishing that off that season, it's going to be interesting to see how teams approach how much they go for. Like you say, those Seattle sides that start off a little bit slow and just get better and better as the year go by. And maybe that's something we see from Kansas City again, or
Yeah, I would like it without the losing at the first part of the season, right? Maybe just,
yeah,
at least get some results in the early part of the season.
yeah.
But to me, MLS is always about being hot at the end of the year. And like Vermees said it at the end of last year, and I agree with him. If Sporting would have made the playoffs, I think nobody would have really wanted to play them. They
No,
were playing so good. And you never know, it's single elimination, anything can happen. But I think they would have kind of given some teams hell because they were moving pretty good at the end of the
yeah.
year. And they had a lot of talent and they get in goals, which is sometimes the hardest thing to do in the playoffs. So if you can score, anything's possible.
Exactly, yeah. And so I guess this is sort of finish up on the players on the roster now. What do you think we should be expecting from sort of Kinder and Polido going into maybe the first sort of couple of months? Is this going to be this hold off, wait till May when they start hitting their sort of stride maybe again?
Yeah, it's hard to know, right? Because when you miss a
Mm,
whole season, you don't expect, especially both had knee surgeries, you don't expect them to
yeah.
bounce back immediately. And sometimes injuries like that, they say it's the year after the return where they really hit their stride. So I'm hoping it doesn't take that long. But
Mm,
I think, like I was saying earlier, I think Polito will be contributing a little quicker. And that, if Kenda can get back in there within the first couple of months and start to at least be a super sub or something, he's got so much pace and
yeah.
energy off the bench. That'd be great to bring that in and really run at tired teams. And like you said, if they can find a way to get both Agata and Polito on the field together, like if they can both be healthy, oh,
Mm.
like I don't know how you take Agata off. He tied for the
No,
Golden Boot and he was
it's
only there for like a third of the season. So he had a heck of a season and it's something that hopefully he'll replicate.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be exciting to see, and it's Portland to kick off the season. A trip up to Portland, an away game, but it looks like two sides. I mean, Portland have brought in Evander, the Brazilian sort of midfielder, who looks like an exciting prospect. There's a lot of excitement around his arrival. But they're another side who maybe aren't as defensively solid as they might have hoped. So looking into this game going forward, this opening match, I mean, are we expecting a sort of a 4-3 win one way or the other?
Gosh, that might be fun, right? Lots of
Yeah.
goals going in. We're all worried about our defense, but somebody finds a way. I mean, Portland's a tough place to play.
Mm,
I find this matchup very interesting too, just because they're not really like a rival, right? They have that key double post playoff game where they eliminated Kansas City and went on
yeah.
to win their MLS Cup. So I'm still a little bitter about it, even though it was like 8 years ago. Um, but they are two of the teams. I saw them in Philadelphia were the three teams that kept the most players from their
Yeah.
roster last year, which Philly, it makes sense, right? They made the MLS Cup
Mm,
finals, but Sporting in Portland, it seems less logical because they both missed the playoffs. But
yeah.
weirdly, I feel good about Sporting, and I don't know what to feel yet about Portland. If Evander, is that right? If he
Yeah.
hits the ground running, then yeah, I mean
Yeah.
they were talking about he might be the best signing of the offseason. So I'm hoping catching them early will be a plus. Like he won't have
Yeah.
figured things out yet, and Sporting will already be kind of clicking, hopefully from just bringing back everything they had working at the
Mm.
end of last year.
Yeah, definitely. Are you feeling then confident looking at this side now? This is going to be a return back to the playoffs at the end of this year. Do you think the club are aiming on a? I think they're obviously always aiming to get as high as possible, but is it realistic goal of let's get a home playoff game? The way that's been built.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a I don't know, a Mark or a Homer in that regard, right? I just
Yeah.
really I believe in them, and I was like the last one to get off the train last year going, they're gonna turn it around, y'all. They're gonna be able to figure this out. And they just, they did eventually. It
Yeah.
just took way too
Just a
long.
little too late.
But
Yeah.
but I just feel like, yeah, this team seems like a contender, but that's the off season, right?
Mm,
Everybody has hope, everybody
yeah.
is undefeated, everybody feels like they have a chance. But if they play their cards right and health, I think health is going to be the big thing. If we
Yeah.
stay healthy, lock down that questionable maybe center back situation, a lot of talent all over the field, a lot of depth. If guys aren't working, hopefully they'll go to the bench and someone else will work. And
Mm,
so much attacking talent. I mean, yeah, it might be a lot
yeah.
of 4-3 games though. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, it should be fun for everyone who gets to tune in, who's signed up
Yeah.
for the package. You imagine
Ah,
there's going to be a
yes.
lot of people clicking on to follow the SKC games
Yeah.
if they're neutral as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that like wraparound show. They might be a hit on the wraparound show if
Yeah.
they're, yeah, if you're a neutral fan just wanting to see goals go in or just, a mess on defense. So
Yeah, it's going to be good to see. And obviously, Nashville have moved back over to the east. St. Louis are coming in, so brand new expansion team. Minnesota, Reynoso's not even part of this team at the moment. Like
yeah.
still in Argentina. RSL aren't really doing too much. So I guess there's that hope that on paper you're preparing yourselves a bit better than some of these other teams.
Yeah, but then you look at the teams that missed the playoffs last year too, and
Yeah.
Seattle because of CCL and
Yeah.
injuries and whatnot. Portland is a usual playoff team, so you got to have quite a few teams fall out. Well, unless they just expand to 18 teams, I think was the rumor I saw the other day, and I was like, 18 teams? That's like over
Yeah.
60% of the
So
league.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he'll be very disappointed not to hit the playoffs
Yeah, I mean, it would be unacceptable,
then. Yeah.
basically. And Peter Vermees, he's in the last year of his contract, so I obviously he's always motivated. He
Mm,
loves, he loves to win. He hates to lose, I think is what he
yeah.
actually says. He doesn't love winning as much as he hates losing, but I think they have to be a contender for a home playoff
Mm.
game. And if things all break right, I could see this team being very, very good, one of the best teams in the league. So, but there's always a little bit of luck and staying healthy and whatnot.
Definitely, yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing how SKC kick off the year. And like you say, it's going to be a fun one for neutrals like myself to hopefully see a lot of final third action in the side. Chad, thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully, we can chat again once the games kick off and deeper into the season to see if anything's happened with Vermees' contract. I guess will be a big talking point.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I'm happy to come back and talk about it. I love talking sporting Kansas City.
Excellent, brilliant. Thanks again.